Welcome back to another episode of the FamLee Farms podcast. I'm Justin. I'm joined, as always, by my wife, Labor.
Ah,
This week, we're going to talk about why we chose to add an Angora rabbit to our farm. But before we get into that subject, we just like to do as we always do and recap what the last week at the farm's been like.
yeah, it's been a little hectic. We had a lot kind of go on over the weekend, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time we've been late recording a podcast episode.
Yeah.
We're a day behind because of the way the week's been already, and it's only going to be worse.
Yeah. So starting off this weekend, I had a wedding to go to on Saturday for a friend of your mother's. So I got to tag along for that, but it was a formal occasion. So I had a lot of preparation going into making sure my dress and all that stuff was ready and spent a lot of time fixing hair and all that jazz.
Well, and Saturdays are basically like the main farm day. Like if we're going to get anything like project-wise accomplished on the farm, it's going to be on a Saturday. But you had done pictures the night before because you're a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that morning you felt obligated to edit those pictures, which is fine. I completely understand. I mean, this is also pays. This pays more than the farm pays. So, but I was outside by myself doing the farm things pretty much all day. And then by the time I came in, it was time for you to leave.
Yeah.
So
it was a very hectic day. It's been so crazy. I even forgot about pictures on Friday.
Yeah.
So I had pictures Friday evening, and then Saturday morning I edited. You did stuff around the farm. Saturday afternoon we did the soil test, and we'll share more on that at another time.
It was shocking results, but I think that'll get its own podcast episode talking about what we found and what our plan is to restore the soil.
Restore and improve and all that good jazz.
Have actual good dirt.
And then, well, we gotta say soil.
Yeah, it's dirt.
Okay.
We're from Tennessee. It's dirt.
And then I had the wedding that evening, and I didn't get home until late for us. Like, we're old people. We're in bed normally right about now, but you had overtime today, and we're late.
Adding the podcast in gives us a late night at least once a week, just because of finding the time to do it when the house is quiet, which means one person, our child, is already asleep.
So we had that, and then Oliver has gotten sick now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he has had a little bit of a cough the last couple of days, but that's nothing abnormal for him, especially when we've spent extra time outside like we have this weekend because of all the stuff that has been going on. But he developed a fever today, and he's been struggling with it all day long.
Yeah, and we kind of had a feeling maybe he wasn't feeling the best even on Sunday, but he never got actually sick. Like he was
never like, he didn't have a fever. There wasn't anything going on. It was just that like intuition that
he was clingy, and that's not really his style. And so we thought maybe something was up, and we kind of waited for the other shoe to drop, and it took 2 days for that shoe to drop, which is kind of bizarre.
Yeah. Normally it's pretty fast with him. Like if he does not feel well, you will know.
Yeah. But he was just like, and then you start to wonder, are you reading into things or not? Which apparently this time we weren't. But,
You live and you learn. Hindsight's 20/20.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been taking it pretty easy this afternoon since he started running his fever, and that just meant hanging around the house and cuddling on the couch.
Yeah, well, I was at work, so I didn't get to do much of that. 2 shifts of overtime this week, so it's set up for a busy week. As it was. We had trunk or treat last night at our church, which was a pretty awesome event. I mean, it's always a fun event, but then this was the first time we've been able to take the dog with us.
Well, this is the first time Oliver got to go.
It's the first time Oliver got to go to, which is a big deal. I was working the event, so I had the dog with me the whole time, and I didn't really get to go and see Oliver's experience. That's why the dog was top of mind for me, but she did great, and it's just really settled in my mind why you spend time working with your dog and training your dog.
Yes.
And especially for people on a farm, like it's not a farm if you don't have dogs. Like in my heart, but
in our mind, and at all the farms that we know of, even not in East Tennessee, they all have dogs.
Yeah. Everybody has a dog, and then like you go to the Tractor Supply, and a lot of people have their dogs with them, and that's why you see dogs that do react well, and you see dogs that don't react well.
And oddly enough, every time I take Rory on a walk, I find the dog's owners that don't react well.
Oh yeah, and then
that gets her going. It's not the dog; it's the owners.
Well, if you watch the different things about like Cesar Millan and different dog trainers online, they talk about training the owner more than they talk about training the dog, because 99% of the time, the owner's the problem, not the dog, because how you react is going to have an effect on how your dog reacts.
Like their dog's being fine, but then they see us and then they act out, and then it gets Rory a little excited, and then it gets the other dog really excited, and then there we go.
Just a tip, if you put tension on the leash with your dog, it puts them in a state that's completely different. But a loose leash, if you can maintain it. Now, I know some dogs do pull, and that's something that can also be easily correct, surprisingly easily
We probably
corrected.
need a whole podcast for that one. This whole subject about dogs.
Because, and I think a lot of people don't think about training their farm dog, but at the same time, like, because a lot of people that have farm dogs either have like some space. I mean, because people we're talking about with a farm are on more land than we are, obviously. Yes. And so you've got space to let them run around, and maybe you don't have to have them on leash, and their recall doesn't have to be the best, and like all these different things. But then everybody wants their dog to hop in the truck and go to the feed store with them. Yeah. And you're going to need a trained dog for that. You know, you need your farm dog to be decently trained. And the truth of the matter is, it takes a lot of time. And a lot of people came and commented to me last night, even our associate pastor was like, well, if my dog acted like this, then I would have brought her tonight. And it's like, yeah, well, your dog could act like this. Yeah. But it takes hours and hours of commitment. And not everybody has that. Yeah. But that's something to know before you get the dog. Yes. And honestly, while people that are working farms or have jobs and are working farms like we are busy, and you don't have a lot of free time, I would say people that are working land and doing things outside have an advantage of, even though you're busy, you can still train that dog well outside. I mean, I have a carabiner on our leash so that I can hook her to my side for different things. Like, I mean, I've used it a lot when I've gone fishing, and I've got her to a point now where she doesn't need to be on that outside. Yeah. But if we were to get another dog tomorrow, I would walk around with that dog just attached to me at the belt, so that way I could do my chores and things, and it would get the exposure it needs and just get used to being good on the leash.
Yeah, and it would know that it needs to be with you unless you've given it rein.
Yeah, and I would say all dogs are different, but I would say that if your dog is well trained around farm animals, then it's going to be well trained around people. Like, because a chicken is going to excite almost any dog way more than a human is. Yeah. So
especially even like humans dressed up as dinosaurs and all sorts of fun stuff. Like
she didn't know what to think of it at first. Yeah. She's like looking at people. She's like, "What is that thing?"
She sniffed this one kid really good and was trying to figure him out. He was in a full like blackout kind of outfit. Couldn't see a touch of skin or color. It was just black.
Baymax from Big Hero 6 freaked her out. Just a big white blob walking around, and she's like, she didn't bark and she didn't react, but she was watching it.
Yeah, that little boy was the first to come in contact with, so she was pretty excited about that. I'm like, what is this?
Well, it was a good thing in my mind of like, you train your dogs, put the work in, and I told Bree earlier, I said it's nice because when somebody comes up and tells you something about your dog being good, because it's like your kids, you don't look at them as being so great because you see all the bad and the little things that are mistakes, even though they're, are really good at the end of the day.
So that was just really nice. And like, I had hoped to be able to walk her around with Oliver, but it just didn't work out that way.
Well, she saw me and was so excited. Yeah. I was like, I'll just take her, because she's never ran into me outside of the house. Yeah. Like, we're always, like we're
either together or we're just not.
We're either together or separate until we get home. Like, it's rare that we show up to places,
to see each other like that.
And we have a little bit of a different relationship. Not that she's not, doesn't love you and stuff, but it's just when she's with me,
when you're around, she knows that you're the commander.
Yeah. And so she just gets excited too.
So she's like, yes, I love you. You're so great. Bye, Mom.
Yeah. That's pretty much how that one went. But no, it was a good time all around. Yeah. So
lots of fun was had. Candy was ate, and so were nachos and donuts and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? Food. Yeah. That's what every holiday is all about. And we find a way to incorporate food into everything.
Yes. Food is important.
Well, it is important to a lot of people.
Part of the reason we got a farm. We got to have food if something happens.
Well, that's true. That kind of does lead into our other subject. I'm not going to talk about it completely today, but rabbits. Like that's a part of the reason we have rabbits. Do we want to currently eat our rabbits? No, but they
don't have to be really desperate for me. But I mean, they're there if we need.
Yeah, I read a thing in a book that I got recently that said that rabbits were basically like biological refrigerators because you don't have to harvest them until they can live for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a 10-year supply of meat just waiting for the day that you need it.
Yep.
And the more that you have, the more that is.
Yeah, and one rabbit should feed what, a family of 4?
I don't know. If
I thought you.
It depends on the size of a rabbit. I mean, like, because there's the different breeds and things. But like a bigger rabbit, I'd say that 4 people could be satisfied as long as they had other stuff, right? But you could get the nutrients. Obviously, rabbits are low in fat, so you couldn't get all the nutrition that you would need from only eating rabbits. Yeah. But obviously, there would be.
It would give you a meat source.
That's why we have quail. Yeah. We have eggs, so we can get some fats from the eggs, right? I don't know. But anyways, we wanted to talk today about Angora rabbits and why we chose Angora rabbits because. And it's actually, ours is an English Angora. There's 4 different types of Angora. I know one is French, one's English, and I am very tired, so I'm blanking on the other 2 right now. But there's 4 in total, different varieties.
Mm-hmm.
And they some of them have a little bit different fur, like a different texture, or like the way it lays and different things. But for the most part, Angora rabbits are kind of the same. That's why they're all called Angoras. And they're a very unique rabbit because they're a fiber animal.
Yep.
And so that means that they're kind of like a sheep or maybe an alpaca, which is a little more less seen as a fiber animal, but like a sheep. So they have wool that can be sheared and spun and used to create clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's apparently the best wool out there and one of the most desirable wools out there.
We've got a friend that is super excited for when we do harvest some wool from our new little bunny, Rose.
Yes. And I think it'll be interesting. I would love to try to spin it, but the attributes of the wool actually can make it difficult to spin. So it's a softer wool than merino wool like people would be used to. And so because it's softer, it doesn't have the little, I can't remember what they call them, but like little legs basically that stick off the fiber. And that allows the fiber to band together better when being spun, and so it's stronger. You can't pull it apart as easy. But the Angora doesn't have that, so it's very smooth. So it can be hard to get it to spin and hold tight.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll actually mix Angora and merino together, and that's for a few different reasons. It's easier to spin, is what I understand. But also, Angora is 7 times warmer than merino wool.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
My understanding is that because it has an air pocket in the fiber. So like in the wool, there's an air pocket.
Huh.
And that was, honestly, the main reason that we went with Angora over any other breed of rabbit is because of the wool.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to, and because the wool is
it's
very
desirable.
Valuable. It's desirable. This is a good word. You can sell it for $10 an ounce, which is a very good profit margin. Especially when you consider that it would be $10 for like a pound of merino wool. That's a big difference. When you're talking about, I can get $160 for a pound versus $10 for a pound. Now, obviously, the sheep's going to put off considerably large amount of wool.
Yeah.
But they also require a considerably larger amount of food and work to get it.
Yeah.
And so, like, obviously, we're a small hobby farm. We don't have the space currently to graze sheep.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want just a sheep.
Yeah.
So we don't have that kind of room and ability to move an animal like that around.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously sheep were out anyways if we wanted a fiber animal. This was really the best option for anybody. You could have a fiber animal, and literally if you learn to spin and knit, you could have this rabbit and make some level of clothing. I don't know. I've yet to understand how much wool in ounces, let's say, can make like a ball of yarn.
Yeah.
I don't know what ounces to yards conversion is as far as wool is concerned. I haven't been able to figure that out yet.
Yeah.
But you could have this and actually make clothes, which is kind of crazy. I pray that we never get to the state. Like, one thing is eating animals.
Yeah.
A whole other thing is having to make your own clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope that we never fall that far in economics. Like, not just as a family, but just as a country.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
Yeah, like I'll go get more jobs if I have to get some clothes. I got plenty of clothes. We should last a little while.
Yeah, we should have a good stockpile.
And I'm not above the thrift store, so
Oh no, I love me some thrift store finds.
Yeah, but so you can have in your backyard in a city. If you're a crafty person, your rabbit adds that Angora adds one more benefit. But while they're easier to deal with than 100-pound or 100+ pound sheep to get the wool from, you don't need expensive clippers and systems and multiple people. You could pretty much groom your Angora by yourself. That doesn't mean they're not without work.
Yes.
And you experienced that for the first time today.
Yeah, because things have been so hectic. Like, you had a chance once last week to really bring her in and groom her well, and just comb her out and make.
So we've had her since we've had her for, I guess, a week and 2 days now.
Yeah.
3 days, and I've probably groomed her 4 times, I think, in that. Short times out in the pen.
Yeah. And
then I've groomed her twice in the house, but this Saturday was the longest that I spent really trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. But since it had been a few days now since she had been last groomed, I was like, okay, I'm going to bring her inside in the morning, and me and Oliver are going to sit down and we're just going to pet on her, love on her, get that exposure, and then we'll groom her a little bit, and it'll be fine. She did not want to at first. So very, very jumpy and trying to run away and all that. But then after we got in the groove of things, I gave her a little break, and I looked down. I was covered from neck to knee.
That wool
in wool
gets everywhere.
Wow. And I have a whole little baggie full somewhere because I was going to show you how much came off of her.
Oh yeah. Well, I had the one bag because I was going to save it.
Yeah, I couldn't find it, so I put it in a small baggie, and that little baggie is pretty full. Yeah. I did get one of the mats out of her hair, so that was nice.
Yeah. She's got some mats right now from the previous owners, and they had the litter, and so that's a lot to deal with. Yeah. The reason that we're grooming her so much right now is because we don't know the exact age. I think it's on the paper that we have. Yeah, it's on her paper. I haven't had the time to really focus on that.
Is when she was born sometime.
So she's 3 months old, which is a little old actually to finally be selling them. I don't know why she waited the extra month. A lot of people would just do 2 months. But anyways, so she's got a fairly long coat right now. Yeah. I think that we could probably go ahead and shear her, but we're getting into the winter. So that's why we've kind of debated so far.
How fast does it grow back?
And but then also because she's so young and fresh to us, we're trying to give her as much exposure now while she's still not completely full grown. So that way we can continue to brush her and things. And that way she gets bigger, she won't be afraid of it. We'll be able to just easily maintain her. I would say from what I've read online that an Angora is like a once a week situation. You should get them out and just brush them well and make sure you get out any little knots or tangles, any mats out of them. She's definitely gonna have to have some cut out. I've already cut one out, but
the ones behind her ears I went and got just because that was pulling on her so bad.
Did you cut it out?
Yeah. Okay, I grabbed the scissors.
Yeah, awesome.
And got it.
Yeah, I'm glad because that one worried me, and
it was pulling on her pretty hard. Yeah. So I grabbed the scissors and trimmed that out.
And the thing is that I learned is that they have very elastic skin. Yeah. So you could be brushing, you're starting to pull that mat, and if you start to feel back on their fur, or their wool, as you start to feel back on it, you can feel their skin get pulled out. And it comes surprisingly far. So I learned that you have to kind of start the brush and then hold the wool. Yeah. And so that way it's not, because they're going to react if they hurt. And I've not had her jump while brushing her. And even when her skin gets pulled a little bit, she's not freaked out. I imagine they have a lot of loose skin because if you have rabbits or you've ever seen rabbits, they'll lay down. And so when they sit up, they look so small, and then they lay down and they're 3 times as long.
Yeah, it's crazy. She would lay out under the chair over there when we had our breaks. After she was done exploring, she would just lay out and just
Yeah.
The full length of the chair.
That's how Honey and Coop are too, though. And it's like, my gosh, guys, like, I can't believe you're that long. It's really surprising. Which is why they need a little bit more space in their hutches than a lot of people give them. And there's there's a whole debacle on the internet about how you should keep rabbits, but we all have our own opinions about animals. But yeah, that was the number one reason, was the wool. But it is something that, like, it does take work. And so that's like, if you're already super busy on the homestead, like, I recommend everybody gets rabbits, even if you're not a farmer. I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast if you're not into homesteading or farming.
Or a garden.
But we're happy to have you here.
Yeah.
But regardless of who you are or what you do, like, having a rabbit is like one of the best things you can do. Not just as a pet, but as an ecological resource for you and your family.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that about eating them.
No.
But they provide so many hidden benefits, just from the fertilizer they produce and the way that they can help you reduce food waste. If we want to live in a greener planet, it's going to require us to do things that are in cohabitation with nature. And that means bringing nature and wildlife, even though rabbits are domesticated, bringing these animals into our lives and utilizing what God created them to do is what it really comes down to. God created these animals and God gave them a purpose. And I believe that part of what God was doing with Adam was he was supposed to take care of this world. And that meant working with the rest of God's creation. And if we utilize it, that's what permaculture is, right? Which is the hotness in farming. And it's truly the best option in farming, in my opinion, for being green and using that. But if we work with nature instead of against nature, like we have in modern farming techniques, then we're going to have way better results. And having a rabbit is going to give you that ability to work with those animals.
There's so many... The way God designed everything is just absolutely mind-blowing. And it's funny to, like, see how we've modernized everything and how we've progressed so far, blah, 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 blah. But then you go back and you see how things were meant to be done. And like, oh my gosh.
How God intended things to be done. And then, and I'm with you on that too, about like how God intended to be done. But we're like, wow, we're so advanced. And it's like, no, guys, those dudes built pyramids without cranes. But we're advanced. You know, the Romans had running water without pipes. You know what I mean? Like aqueducts running right through the house. Like, this is some cool stuff. We're not these crazy, you know.
No. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, that's what Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes.
And it's still true today. We just figure out different ways of doing stuff.
If you've not read Ecclesiastes, you need to go read Ecclesiastes. A lot of people look at it as like a down and dreary book, and there are some aspects of that, but at the same time, like, he then gets into subjects that you're like, a man was thinking about this that early in history. You're talking like even thousands of years. I don't know thousands, but just so long even before Jesus walked the earth, right? So you're talking, what, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, you know, somewhere in there. And Solomon's sitting there and he's like, okay, listen, you're going to want to send your money out on these ships because it'll bring back money. However, you need to diversify this portfolio because you don't know what's going to happen. You're like, wait a minute. This guy was already talking about diversifying your assets.
And he talks about how alcohol and stuff won't satisfy you.
Oh, yeah, because he tried everything.
Yeah, right? He tried everything under the sun to get satisfaction, and he couldn't get it except from God. So
he said hard work, and I read Ecclesiastes again recently too. And he talks about hard work, and I think that's a great thing. Is people who do a lot of hard work with the land and things is like, that's what's going to satisfy you. But we have to be careful that we don't find our satisfaction in the hard work, but that we're just willing to work hard as people, right? But by not putting our focus into that, but just doing it, then we'll find.
And that's all, again, laid out in Ecclesiastes. And if you have a hard time reading the Bible, you might want to check out the NLT version. That's one of our personal favorites to read from when we're just doing our daily readings and things, because it breaks it down so nicely.
I've literally, like, our church uses the King James version, and I appreciate the King James version. And they use other translations sometimes. But I've literally sat there and heard a pastor like read a verse in the King James and then explain that verse in the way that the NLT read the verse to you. And it's like, well, if we just skipped this one step, like we'd all get it a little bit better. But anyways, we're here about rabbits.
Yes.
We like to take rabbit trails on our rabbit farm. But yes, we're here about rabbits. And so the wool was definitely a prime thing. I also wanted more rabbits because more rabbits equals more fertilizer, and
which is really going to help in amending the soil.
Yeah, so it's a whole part of our soil, amendment plan is that. But also, this is where it sounds a little strange, but it did play a factor in our decision, and it should play a factor in your decision too, depending on what you're going to do with your rabbits. If you're just going to have the rabbits for some of the benefits they offer, but never breed your rabbits, then this isn't really going to matter to you as much. But if you want to be somebody who uses their rabbits to make an income, part of that's going to be breeding them. I mean, that's just the plain and simple truth of it.
Yep.
And so when you're looking at those kind of rabbits, various rabbits fetch more on the market.
Yep.
And so like a lion head, even a pedigreed lion head rabbit, is only going to bring somewhere in the range of $30 to $40 because they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with like Rexes or New Zealands, which are the more common meat rabbits.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Hollands seem like they can get up into a higher range, but the only rabbit that I've seen that successfully brings the highest price all the time, excluding maybe show rabbits. I'm on Craigslist, guys.
We're not shopping anything fancy.
No, I don't even know where
and
you find
Facebook
fancy
Marketplace.
Rabbits. We don't even have rabbit shows in our area, which I'm a little disappointed about. Like, I'd kind of like to go to a rabbit show just to see the kind of people that are at the rabbit show.
We like people watching.
Yeah, and then
so that'd be an interesting place to go.
And seeing rabbits that are different too, obviously, because I'm sure that there's way more breeds out there than I realize or have actually seen in person.
And colors and all those different things that come into play when you're showing an animal. So
we watched a movie about chicken shows the other day, and that was a whole thing. But
colors
these rabbits,
and patterns, and
they got very deep into chickens.
Wow!
But these rabbits fetch a higher price than most other rabbits. So these rabbits are typically around $100 for getting a bunny.
Yep.
With pedigree. I actually haven't seen any really being sold without pedigree. I mean, I think that's just speaks to the breed. In our area, there's a few breeders, but there's nowhere near the number of Angora breeders in our area as there are lion heads and New Zealands and Rexes, the more common rabbits. And so to us, we wanted more rabbits anyways. To be honest, we joke saying rabbit farm. I mean, that's what I would like. We love our quail, we love our chickens, but I think right now, like my focus and heart is more for the rabbits, just because of what they're capable of.
Well, and right now we're in the fall and gonna go into winter soon. Our egg production's way down, and that's what our chickens and quails are for, is egg production. So they're just not.
Yeah.
They're not in their prime right now.
But I just think I guess my point was like I'm more, I have more of a heart for the rabbits, or more interested in the rabbits. It's like as far as livestock
they're more
is
personable.
Concerned. Well, yeah, but I don't even mean that. I'm just like, I think I'm more interested in what they can do, and I think I'd be a more advocate. Like the quail, if you ask me what bird should I get to raise for eggs, I don't care if you have 100 acres. I'm going to suggest quail because it's easy. They're always putting eggs out. The production's high. Like there's so many, and the eggs are better for you. Like we're going to have to do an episode about poultry and because we don't have ducks. One day we will have ducks. Not at this property, but we will have ducks. I have a whole plan. Everybody's like, ducks are so gross. They're so nasty. It's like, well, I have an idea, and I think it could work. But anyway.
We just got to get that next property.
Yeah, but we knew that we wanted more rabbits. And so I could see having even more rabbits than we currently do. But, I at least, for sure we want to get to 4 rabbits. Obviously, the 2 that we currently had as the breeding pair, and then the 2 Angoras. Yeah. So Rose and then a buck to come up later.
I want to name him Smokey. I need a brown one.
That's fine. I don't care. but then I told her, I was like, I would be almost like a rabbit rescue. I just have them out in tractors, moving them around.
Yeah, he would.
But be an advocate for rabbits just because they're such an interesting animal. And maybe it's like what you're saying, though, because we can't have much other livestock. I think that we could probably, if we set things up properly, could support a goat or 2 at the pygmy goats.
You so want the goat.
I think it's a great idea. But I would love to find somebody local that we could cultivate a relationship with that also has them and breeds them. Because obviously, if you get one of the Nigerian dwarfs, you're going to want that goat to produce milk eventually. And I don't want to have a buck, because then you get into the buck needs to be separated and all these things.
Yeah.
And so if we had, and on our current land, if we had the ability to know somebody else that had these, but we have very specific requirements, and I'm probably going to wait a little while before I jump deep in that sort of thing.
Y'all pray. I need him to hold off.
I'm going to hold off. But like the rabbits interested me more. Like I would say, like, I would be hesitant if you said like, hey, there's this person that has the free goat. It's the exact thing that we want. It's a polid, Nigerian dwarf. I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. I don't know if we should get it. I mean, I have a hard time saying no to a free one. But like if you said, hey, this person's needing to rehome this rabbit and, they're not asking any money for it, I'd be like, let's just get it. Even if it's fixed, because there's so many things that the rabbits still do. And they're so cheap.
That bunny honey.
The bunny honey. So. The bunny honey is good for the land. And then that's another thing that can be sold. People will buy it in various different ways. You can be the premium bunny manure person and sell it for $5 for a small bag, like a freezer bag size bag. Or you can be the person who's just trying to get $5, and people sell a whole feed bag full of it for $5. And that's such a dichotomy. Yeah. In that, it's just funny to me, but we
need more rabbits to get to selling, because right now, I don't think we get enough to really sell unless we forsake our land.
Yeah, well, right now we need to amend our soil before we worry about amending other people's soil.
Yes,
but we will hopefully get there at some point. But I enjoy the rabbits, and they're a good animal, and they. And the Angora is just a special breed with that fiber capability. And the thing, too, is I've done a lot of research on rabbits. And the Angora is a special breed because of the wool. But they also are very personable.
Yes.
And they have to be, though. I mean, otherwise, how are you going to be able to take care of their fur?
Yeah.
I do want to mention, like, while we're talking about Angora, so they can be anywhere between, like, 7 to 10 pounds. Ours will probably end up more in that, like, 7 to 8 pound range, just because of the breed that she is. They can produce anywhere between 2 to 4 pounds of wool. And if you break that down and think about, like, 16 ounces is in a pound, and then that's $10 an ounce, you're talking about the potential for several $100s a year for one Angora rabbit.
Yep.
And that means that one Angora rabbit, if you don't do anything else with your rabbitry, you could still have a lot of rabbits and not come anywhere close into, and you could come way over in paying for your rabbitry or paying for your little farm. Depending, we could probably, if we are able to move the wool like our expectation is and our hope is, then we should have no issues paying for our hobby farm.
Yeah.
Just with the one rabbit. And then that gets multiplied the more rabbits that you get and the more colors of fur that you get. And the way that you advance through that.
Yeah.
Right? But they also, the thing, I don't remember if I mentioned this when we talked about sheep or not, but Angora rabbits will produce more wool for less feed than a sheep will. And so that's a big thing to think about. And that's the other thing about rabbits too in general, is a rabbit will produce more meat per pound of feed, or however you break down the feed. For the same amount of feed with rabbits, you'll produce way more meat than you can with even a cow.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know what I would do with a whole cow.
Yeah. I've joked in the past about, we should go in with someone and buy half of a cow together, so that way we each get a quarter cow. Because I don't know what I've heard of people buying half a cow for meat and stuff, but like, where do you put all that? Freeze. Yeah, like we have one, but it's not working. It's broken. It came with the house.
It's feed storage now.
Now we're using it for feed storage. But I would like to have a deep freezer one day and be able to store, but just meat in there. But again, I think I can only do a quarter cow.
Well, then you still.
But I think that would be.
I don't know if then you got to think about what the cuts of meat and stuff are. You're not gonna like this, but one of the guys that I work with, he had asked a guy about hey, can I get some venison? And the guy was like, oh yeah, we can get you a doe. Because the guy deer hunts, and he was like, hey, he just wanted a little bit of meat. And the guy's like, well, we can get you this. And he's like, I don't know what I would do with that. And I was like, I mean, I'll take some of it.
Oh.
But again, I don't know what I do with it. And I know that you worry about eating it.
The one time I tried it, I did not like it. It was prepared as tacos, which was a terrible introduction to it from my understanding. Yeah. But I didn't like it. I don't want to try it again.
Deer jerky's good. I've had that.
Now, bison, someone offers us some bison. Sign us up.
Well, yeah, half a bison is still, 750 pounds?
I'll find a way.
I don't know what
I'll find a way.
I'll take 1/8 of a bison, please. Preferably the brisket. That could be neat.
I will find a way. That's some yummy meat.
I'd like to smoke bison burgers. And obviously we can buy bison at the store.
Yeah, but
it's expensive.
It's not as fun as
getting
getting a bison.
Well, that's a whole other thing for another day. But
if we end up with the giant farm, I'm getting a bison.
Well, you can take care of him and have the double fences. He's strong. But
he'll be my pet like that one we watched a video on.
People are crazy. Hey, just get a rabbit. That's a way better pet. And see, I keep getting so off track. I'm very tired, and I apologize if this episode is way more rabbit trail than normal. But we're both
pretty tired.
You've been home with a sick kid. I worked 12 hours today after being out late yesterday. And we could potentially be out late tomorrow if we make it to church, depending on sicknesses and things like that. And then another overtime. So I'm already sleepy looking ahead.
Yeah.
So it's just not a great night for that. But when you almost every rabbit breed. So you read about rabbits and you read about one and they're like, and this rabbit is so sweet and they're nice and gentle and all these things. And you're like, wow, this must be a great rabbit breed. And then you read about another rabbit breed. It's the same thing. And then you read about another. And you know what? I've not read about a single rabbit breed in my research. I'm sure that there are some out there that are known to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Now, bucks are a little bit wilder than a doe because they have the strength and they're not as, I don't know if you'd say like that. They're like, Coop is friendly. Like he'll walk up skittish. I'd say bucks, male rabbits are more skittish than female rabbits. But they're all super friendly. Even the biggest ones, the Flemish giants, which are called the king of rabbits, like they are still supposedly super friendly.
Yeah, and you can tell the difference in the males and females, even if you're just looking at them at like the Rural King or something, because the girls will be up front and a little bit more together, and the guys are like, nope, I'm gonna go hide in this corner. Don't put me near no one. Don't come near me. All that. But even like in our own personal experience, you open their little hutches at their doors, and Honey's gonna stick her head out.
Yeah,
she's gonna come out and see you. Coop, he's like, no, can I get back in? Can I go back? Thanks, bye. So, but they're both super sweet, and like you get them out and hold them. We let them run around the chicken area at times, and Oliver plays with them, picks them up, and it's a grand time.
Yeah. So, and the long and short of it is we got an Angora rabbit because they are the only rabbit. Well,
they're a good fiber rabbit.
Yeah. Well, they're the only rabbit that produces wool like this and to this number.
Yes.
And so they can be used as that. And it's, I don't know if we've said it, but it's humanely sourced. It's not like pelts or anything.
You just shave their hair.
You just shave it off. Or you can pluck it, which sounds bad. But when they pluck it, it's just lightly pulling against the fur. It's kind of like when we brush it. It's like when you
comber. Yeah.
And the fur will just naturally start to fall out. The reason, like technically, the rabbit won't get to a point that its hair is so long it can't live. It will fall out. But they'll start to groom themselves, and that can cause a wool block. Because unlike a cat will groom itself and will be able to regurgitate the hairball. But a rabbit has no ability to regurgitate, and so they can get sick from that. And so actually, like that's why you feed them hay regularly too, is because that helps get the
fiber and stuff that they need
properly. But so we chose Angora rabbits because of their wool production, because they fetch a decent higher price per kit than other rabbit breeds do.
Yeah,
and because you're talking about if you have 2 Angora rabbits, you're in that $200.
Yep,
thereabout. You'll be able to sell their bunnies for $100, and they'll have anywhere between 6 and 8. So on the low end of that, that's $600 for the first breeding.
Yep,
they're really not going to eat it's not like they're going to eat an incredible amount more or an incredible amount before you feed them. It costs $60 annually to raise a rabbit on pellets alone. If you're not supplementing with anything else, which we obviously are.
Yeah.
And so it's a very cheap animal that can produce a decent dividend. And then you get all the other benefits of rabbits, like the fertilizer and the eating your food waste and things like that. And so in our book, the Angora was the best one to choose because we also were willing to put up with the grooming.
Yes.
And the grooming, like, we haven't even bought anything to groom. We had a slicker brush for the dog. And honestly, I just got the wild hair Saturday to just go get my comb out of the bathroom, wash it, use it on the rabbit, which is a pretty clean animal, and then just wash it really well again. I might get it its own comb.
Well, so the one in the full bath here, that is a new comb. It's not the comb from your bathroom.
I used the one from my bathroom the other day.
Okay. So there's a new one in the other bathroom. It came with a thick comb that I needed because mine got messed up or something. I couldn't find it. I don't know. But we have another one.
Does it have the spaced?
Yeah.
And so, like, the comb you want, and I know, like, I doubt there's too many different ones, where you have, like, the more wide open end on one side and the thinner end on the other. And so you start with the wide open and brush through, and then you flip to the tighter bristles and brush through, and it gets all the tiny knots out.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're very, very soft once you've done that.
The breeder we got her from had this really cool, like, metal brush that's probably meant for grooming animals. I don't know if it's bunny specific or not, but it was a little metal comb, and it had longer, thicker teeth on it, and then in between the smaller ones too. So it allowed you to do both at the same time, basically, just depending on how thick you went in with it. So that was really neat.
Yeah, that is neat. But I would recommend an Angora to anybody who's willing to put the work in.
Yes,
the nice thing is the work is difficult. I mean, it's not just like it's easy. Just like it takes probably 30 minutes or so, and then like
I took a little longer because I had the toddler running around with me.
When you're getting used to it.
That's what I was gonna say. This is my first time messing with it. So I probably had the bunny up here a good hour and a half, but I let her take breaks because I was worried about her getting...
Well, I wanted her to be able to come in the house and walk around anyways, but you can watch TV while doing it. You just set the rabbit in your lap and you...
Be prepared to get dirty, like covered in wool.
Be ready for that. But
I was wearing the wrong clothes this morning. I had on a dark black shirt and a dark...
it wasn't the color that was the problem. It was the fabric. You basically had like
I was wearing cotton and
material.
Sweater, and it was just everywhere.
Yeah. And so I told her we needed to make like a short or a TikTok, whatever, about like what it's like to groom an Angora rabbit. Because the process is peaceful and nice, but then you have to get up and find a lint brush because it's a lot of wool. But that wool's gold, you know? I mean, it's selling for $10 an ounce. I'll take that, you know? But no, they're a great rabbit breed. I'm hoping that we'll start to break through her shell more and more. She's at least getting friendlier when you come up to the cage.
Yeah, she came up and said hi to me both times I've been out today.
Yeah, she just needs to get used to being handled a little bit more. And like, obviously you can talk to the person you're going to get them from, the breeder, and ask questions about like, well, how often do you handle them from kids? Because like our hope is like when we have baby rabbits, once they're not pinkies anymore, once they've got their fur on them and are getting around and open their eyes and stuff, we would like to at least try to go down there and handle them once a day.
Yeah.
So that way, when they go to their new owners, they're used to being handled. Now, I'm not saying that the woman that we got ours from didn't do that. Yeah. But she just seems a little shy still towards people for me to believe that she's had a ton of interaction on a regular basis. But you can always ask your breeder that. But again, that doesn't mean that that's going to have been the case. I mean, obviously, people lie.
And all animals have their own personalities, even within their own breeds and stuff. So,
even it's like two people. They're going to have characteristics that are similar, but they're not going to be exactly the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, her personality could just be a little skittish, and that just be that. Yeah. So, we're still learning her, and she's still learning us. It's a process, but we're excited to go through it.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome, and everything's a fun learning experience. I mean, you do have those moments. I'm sure you just heard the dog shake off when she got up, but obviously, like with everything, you have those moments of like, oh man, maybe this wasn't a good idea because this is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. But then you just push through a couple of days and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
Now this isn't.
Now I've got in my groove. This isn't as bad as I was thinking it was. It's just getting in that groove of things.
Yeah. But yeah, I would highly recommend it for just about anybody, but you've got to be ready to put the work in. And obviously, maybe it just needs to be said, an Angora rabbit is not really the rabbit that you buy your child.
No.
If you want a rabbit for your child.
Unless you're talking like a teenager who's, that they are able to take on responsibility.
But even then you still have to be ready to step in at any moment and take that responsibility on yourself. I personally would say that if your child wants a rabbit, there are way better breeds out there because the neglect can quickly have an effect on the rabbit as far as mats are concerned.
Yeah.
So like the more matted it gets, especially in areas that it can easily reach, like the one mat that we dealt with was behind the rabbit's ears, and we didn't have to rush to that because the rabbit can't get its mouth to its own ears, right? But if it's on the front of the rabbit, they can eat that. And then you're getting into the wool block issue that we already talked about. And so I think that unless your child is that child of they already have animals and they take care of them so well.
What's that one little girl?
Mary Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, with her pigeons and chickens from
unless they're her.
Yeah, from Cog Hill Farm. But yeah, unless they're like her, and there are those kids out there, and hopefully Oliver will be that kid with something, But it takes a special kid to be the one to get one of those rabbits. But if you're an adult and you're used to responsibility and that you can upkeep, then I definitely would recommend.
Yeah.
And as long as you have a team, right?
Yeah.
And so in our case, I'm not getting home this week until 8:00 or later every night. So I needed my teammate to step up and help out, and that's what we talked about last week. Was like definitely get the animal, but make sure that your spouse is on board because there are going to be life issues. When we got this rabbit and I came up with the plan to regularly groom this rabbit, we didn't know I was going to be working overtime this week.
It wasn't on the schedule for any time soon. So we thought we had a little bit more time to get in the groove of stuff. And
but life's never on schedule.
No.
So that's you just got to be ready for the schedule to change. It doesn't matter how well you try to prepare. I love to look out ahead and try to figure out like what do we want to do and things like that. But that doesn't mean that's what's always going to happen.
Yep. So you just got to think about that and be ready to step in and help. No matter if it's your spouse who's gung-ho and wants them or if it's your kid.
Which I know that again, for us, the farm animals falls more on me. So that's just...
Yeah. It all started because you wanted quail and stuff. So we had this agreement ahead of time, just like we talked about last week, where, all right, you get them, you take care of them. Same thing came up with the bunnies. You want them, you take care of them.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you don't
cat
help.
And whatever. But I mean, I help. I do stuff. And like we go through spouts where one of us is the main night person. And this week it happens to be my week because you're working overtime. And all that. So.
Yeah, but I think it speaks highly to the Angora rabbit that we're already like pretty much having in our minds. There will be another one.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and you got to figure out hutch situations.
Yeah, that's pretty much the determining factors where that rabbit's going to live. We would like to be able to have that rabbit in time for it to be old enough to procreate.
Yes.
By time for us to maybe have a kid before Easter. Obviously, we don't want to sell Easter bunnies as far as bunnies that are weaned too early.
Yeah.
We want to be able to provide healthy rabbits, and also while we'll have those rabbits ready around Easter, a time when people are getting an animal like that, I'm not just going to let this rabbit go to willy-nilly people who don't understand the consequence. I mean, it's going to be a big part of the post is, hey, understand the breed. Here's some information and what they require, because I don't want people getting into anything that they shouldn't have, which hopefully maybe you found this podcast because you're interested in Angora rabbits. Hopefully we've given you something to think about. Ours is a great rabbit.
Yes.
For the most part, it seems a lot of them are. That has an impact on how much they are handled and around people from an early age and how they're treated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like any other animal. If you get a puppy and you're mean to the puppy and neglectful to the puppy, that puppy is going to grow into a dog that's not right. There's no other animals different than that.
Yeah.
That's
y'all can probably hear our dog right now chowing down beside us. So
we're probably going to go ahead and wrap this up so that way you guys don't have to hear the dog eating. And I came across a pretty great Bible verse, in my opinion, which is Isaiah 28:26-29. The farmer knows just what to do, for God has given him understanding. A heavy sledge is never used to thresh black cumin. Rather, it is beaten with a light stick. A threshing wheel is never rolled on cumin. Instead, it is beaten with lightly with a flail. Grain for bread is easily crushed, so he does not keep on pounding it. He threshes it under the wheels of a cart, but he does not pulverize it. The Lord of heaven's armies is a wonderful teacher, and he gives the farmer great wisdom. God teaches us how he wants us to cohabitate with his things and shows us the best way to do things. Yep. And we just need to look for that wisdom that God provides as farmers and as people who love animals and gardening and the like. Whether you consider yourself a farmer, a homesteader, a gardener, whatever you want to be as far as it is concerning raising food, then God is going to give you the wisdom to be able to do that the best.
Yep.
He created it. He knows what it takes.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.
God bless.